want to welcome back today one of our favorite guests, and we sincerely mean that. We always enjoy having her, Nancie Dorjath from Dorjath Law Center. Before we start, Nancie, tell our audience a little bit about your elder law practice and yourself.
Well, first I want to say thanks for having me on again.
It's
you know,
always
I
great.
love being here, guys,
Absolutely.
right? So, what I just want to tell the audience there is that I'm an elder law attorney. I also do estate planning, and what an elder law attorney does is they look at estate planning from a different focus, from the aging perspective. And I really think that begins at about the age of 40 because I have clients who end up having diseases, Huntington's, Parkinson's, and you need to start thinking about what does that look like? Because we're no longer worried about having guardianship for our kids if something happens to both of us. We're now going to worry about what happens to us if something happens in a crisis.
Yes.
So the reason why I got into elder law attorney is I was born and raised in the city. I'm Polish, so I was raised by my grandma Busha, and she ended up getting dementia. And what happened is we didn't know an elder law attorney. We didn't know the rules. And because we didn't know the rules, we ended up spending all of her money. And then she lost her dentures in the nursing home. And there wasn't enough money there to buy her dentures. So for end of life dignity, she had to go without teeth for the rest of her life.
Oh.
So how wrong is that? So my mission is to inform people really what's out there, what you can and can't do, and at least have the information to make a good decision for the family.
You know, Nancie, it's always enjoyable because we spend about an hour over coffee, and you always remind us. Sometimes we don't practice what we preach during the show. And I just want to be honest with everybody. Nancie and I have been trying to get together. Actually, Nancie's been trying to get together with me for a couple of years to get our paperwork in order.
Correct.
And, you know, we need to do that.
Right.
And we need to practice what we preach because this is important stuff. Even at the age, you mentioned the age of 40.
Right.
Every time we talk, I'm reminded that somebody at the age of 18 should have powers.
Well, absolutely, and I try and tell all my clients and everyone out there, we drive, we have car insurance. So if you get in a car accident, you could be made whole, but who's going to make those decisions for you? Especially if your parents are divorced.
Right.
Right. I mean, you got to think about you have a 22-year-old, parents are divorced. Now there has to be decisions made, maybe not life and death, but decisions made. Mom and dad don't get along. You want to be able to nominate someone to make those decisions for you. So it helps in a crisis because the last thing we need in a crisis is more pressure. We're under enough pressure already. Let's lay the foundation so if that crisis ever hits, we're not as concerned, we're not as worried, everything's in place, and we're able to move forward in the right direction instead of scrambling as to what am I going to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Right.
So first let's set the scenario for today's conversation between Nancie and a senior's family.
Okay.
And Nancie just got a call, ring-a-ding-ding, from a family, and they don't know what to do. That's so typical.
Mm-hmm.
Mom lives alone, is 87, and just fell and broke her hip. Now the rehab facility is recommending she not go home and live alone again because she will need more care.
So, I'll ask that question again. What do we do now?
Right, so I typically get this call, I call it crisis planning. We're in crisis mode. The family, either they flew in, they're not local, or you have family that they're busy. So I always ask them, do you start with, where's mom gonna go, number one? What facility should we look at? So it's a whole issue of facilities. What facility is gonna accept her? And then we also talk about, you know, what documents does she have? Does she have documents that allows one of the 5 kids to make decisions? And if she doesn't, then we could be in trouble. So you always want to go through the questions with them to say, all right, what documents does she have? And then I'll always get the question, well, why does she need them? You know, that's the other one. Well, I don't understand. And the reason is because if there's ever an issue, we need someone in charge. You always need one person in charge. You may have 5 kids, they all may get along, but if you don't have the kids to get along, you need someone in charge.
Mm-hmm.
I always say you need one captain of your ship. So you need to name that person while you can. Because if you don't have that ability, the court system may do that for you. And someone who steps up may be the child that shouldn't be doing it. But they're only doing it because they're local.
Right.
So
right.
we want to take control while we have it and make the decisions while we have it. I get a lot of times when my mom has a will, and we kind of just talked about that. Well, that means mom died. So the will really isn't that important in that sense. I'm more concerned with what happens while mom's alive. So my parents were hit by drunk drivers. My mom was in the hospital for 5 months. My dad was in the hospital for 2. Had his last rites. They both survived. They both came home. But in that meantime, who pays the bills? So when they do come home, the gas is on, the water is on. They didn't have identity theft. They're getting their pensions. So you want someone who's in charge, so when you do come home, you don't have all of these other worries that, oh my gosh, look at all these bills I have to pay, and I didn't look like I got my Social Security check last month. And there's all these scams going on that affect all of us, that we want somebody to oversee that when you can't. And then when you regain the ability to do what you do, you get that ability back. So the kids don't have to stay in control forever.
Right.
It's during that crisis.
I saw a study recently where they asked baby boomers and their parents the importance of like a will and that estate planning and that the strangely enough, the baby boomers, it was like it was in the teens that thought that was important, very
Right.
small amount. Now the senior, I was like over 80% of the seniors, their parents, the baby boomers' parents, that thought that was important. But when they talked about powers of attorney, they had the exact same score, 77%. Baby boomers and parents thought that was important, but they don't always act on it, do they?
They don't, because, seeing an attorney sometimes for my grandmother was scary, was intimidating. It wasn't something you look, it's like kind of going to a dentist.
Yeah.
Who really looks forward to doing that, right? And so I try and take that nervousness, that edge off, I truly believe, just because of my background, if someone would have came to my grandma's house, if someone would have explained to it, she still deserved legal representation. Just because she couldn't go somewhere didn't mean she didn't have the ability, the desire to want to be protected,
Sure.
to understand what was going on. So for me, it's critical that people understand this is important. I mean, we don't drive without car insurance. Why are we not protecting ourselves? Yeah.
So, can you explain what is a power of attorney?
That's a great question. So in Illinois, we have 2 different types of powers of attorney. We have power of attorney for healthcare and power of attorney for property. So power of attorney for healthcare allows someone else to make healthcare decisions for you when you're not able to. So again, they are not able to step in and make decisions for you if you have the capacity. Everyone has the choice to make a bad decision. So, and I joke about it and say that's what DUIs are about. People who have capacity making really bad decisions,
Very
right?
bad decision.
So,
a good example.
Right, but so as our parents are worried about, I don't want my kids making these decisions, they can't if you have capacity. Okay, so power of attorney allows someone else to make healthcare decisions for you when you can't. I also want to make sure we have backups, because what happens if you name your daughter and your daughter is now on vacation and you can't get a hold of her?
Sure.
So then you want a successor. You can't have joint. So you have 2 kids, you can't have 2 kids being co-agents.
I didn't even think of that.
Because again, they get along. Well, we still only need, number 1 captain of our ship. So we can't have 2 captains deciding which way to go. We're going to go one way. If that child can't do anything, then the next child steps in. If you have 6 kids, you want to name all 6 successors, there's no limit to that. So if you feel bad not naming everyone, we could definitely do that. But you want to name someone who honors what you believe. So if you want to be kept alive for no matter what, you want to name a person that's going to honor your wishes. If those aren't your wishes, but it's your child's wishes to keep mom alive, and I had that. I was out in Huntley.
Wow.
And I was at someone's home, and the mom said, didn't name the daughter, and the daughter was very upset. Well, why didn't you name me, Mom? And she goes, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep you alive. And the mom goes, that's exactly why I didn't name you.
Right.
Right? Because you want to make sure you're naming someone. So power of attorney for healthcare, again, 18 and older. Our 18-year-olds go to college, and as parents, we want to have healthcare information about our child. They're 18. We don't have to get that in. They don't have to give us that information. So power of attorney for healthcare is critical. Then I also believe we all need power of attorney for property.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of clients who say, but my mom doesn't own property, so why do I need it? Well, it's a really bad title, okay? It really should be power of attorney for property and finances.
Right, right.
So it deals with all of our finances. It deals with everything and anything you can think of. Your mail, online banking, your beneficiary designations, your bank accounts, IRAs. I have a really bad case where husband and wife are married. Husband had a debilitating stroke at a very young age. He's in a nursing home. They did not have powers of attorney for property. Everything they had was joint except his 401k. She could not access his 401k because she wasn't on it. So we actually had to go to guardianship court to have her named his guardian to pay for the nursing home. So people don't think about that. Yeah, so it's a critical document that we all need. Again, 18 and over.
And I was just thinking, and with the power of attorney, you know, some people, you just stated, some people say, well, I don't have any money.
Right.
There's family heirlooms too that could be handed down.
And again, it's to access your Social Security. Look at the identity theft and the credit cards that we get. I just had a charge put on my charge card for $2,300 for chairs. So again, and it was just the other day. And you know, Chase sent me an email saying, did you buy $2,300 worth of chairs? No. But again, if someone doesn't have the authority to talk to Chase to say, no, mom didn't go to Bora Bora, no, she didn't spend $22,000 there. Well, now you're in a mess of trouble.
Sure.
So, and it's happening all the time.
And it does.
Yeah.
Twice this year, same situation happened with credit cards, so.
Yeah, we had a client just recently, $3,000, somebody has his card. Now, what if mom and dad did one and now dad's died a few years ago? Is that still a good thing?
That's a great question. So, yes, they're still valid, but they really need to be reviewed. Just like when you buy a new house or a new car, you review your car insurance to make sure it's updated. What you want to do here is, because the laws have changed and because things aren't like they were in the 50s and the bank knew everyone and knew that that was your daughter and she could come in and help you, that's no longer the case. So in Illinois, we really need to give our agents what I call superpowers. So our agents are the people who help us. So they're the ones that are helping us. They need to have expanded powers. I call them superpowers. So we want to give them as much authority as possible to help you, because we never know what the crisis is going to be. We don't know, and I use the example of, we have a big toolbox, a tool chest, floor to ceiling. We want to fill it with every tool possible, because we don't know what crisis is going to be to know what tool we're going to need.
Sure.
And why do you want to leave a tool out? So you try and use a Phillips screwdriver, right? If you need a flathead.
Right.
That's
a
a tough
great
one,
example.
right?
There you go.
So you're thinking about, how do we work that? So my goal is to make sure that all of my clients have the ability to do whatever they need to do at that point. So to me, more is better than less. So we always want to make sure it's expanded powers.
Okay.
Okay.
So aside from power of attorneys, are there any other documents that she may need?
Yeah, so I like my clients all to have, and everyone to have, just a general HIPAA release.
Okay.
You know, when you go to the doctor, you sign the actual HIPAA forms for that doctor. Well, what happens if you're in a car accident or something happens and you're not near your doctor or your hospital? What a HIPAA release does, it allows people that you want to have healthcare information about you. They cannot make decisions, but they can get information. So for myself, it's my husband, my parents, and my kids. They could all talk to the doctor. They could all talk to the nurses. Because if you just have a power of attorney for healthcare, it's only that one person. So you may want more than one person. Your daughter-in-law may be a nurse. You know, your daughter may be a doctor. Well, you may want to add all of those people to have the information. So my daughter, about 4 years ago, was a collegiate athlete. She ended up having a concussion up in Wisconsin. Then they brought her to the emergency room. And her girlfriend called me telling me that she was getting a brain scan because of the second concussion. And the nurse wouldn't release any information to me because my daughter didn't have a chance yet to sign a release form. And she said, I'm sorry, ma'am, you may be her mom, but until we talk to her and she signs a release form, we can't talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I ended up doing is faxing them my power of attorney for healthcare and my HIPAA release. And within 15 minutes, I was able to talk to the nurse instead of driving like a crazy mom up 39 trying to get to Wisconsin.
Yes.
So, you know, that's something someone who is 21. So again, this is critical for all of us. Does it matter if we're in crisis? Yes, we're in a heightened mode. My goal is let's not get in crisis.
Sure.
Let's be prepared when crisis hits, so you don't have to scramble, you don't have to panic, and you have what you need when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And heaven forbid, we had, I know someone whose son was in a car accident in his 20s, and he went into a coma, and then they had to make the terrible decision. So I just think, what if that family, you know, now in today's world,
Right.
Didn't have all those documents? What would have happened?
Well, we have the Healthcare Surrogate Act, which, again, if you don't have a healthcare power of attorney, there's a statute in Illinois that ranks who gets to make your decision first.
Oh, okay.
But parents are equal. So again, I always use the example, if you're divorced, mom says this, dad says this in that scenario, who do you listen to?
Oh,
because
wow.
if you have conflicting levels, if you have 4 kids,
Mm-hmm.
and all 4 kids are coming up with different ideas or different process, or here's what I'm telling the doctor, who does the doctor really listen to?
That's such a good point.
So there is, and honestly, these documents are even more important when the family doesn't agree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you don't agree, you need something to hang your hat on, to say, I'm in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my family, we've used powers of attorney for both of my parents, but my sisters and I made decisions together. It wasn't as important because we were all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, if you have someone who's off the page, someone needs to be put in control for that. And I hear it a lot, oh, my kids all get it wrong.
Oh.
Right? I mean, you guys hear that all this, right?
You know, we see it.
And it's true, some families it's great,
Yeah.
but when crisis hits, people turn. When there's potential money involved, people change.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you really want to have control beforehand, not
Sure.
afterwards.
Right.
I've seen paralysis, not about the state, but about the healthcare. The paralysis overtakes them, and no one will
Right.
make a decision.
Oh,
Right.
they're stuck in the mud.
They're
Just stuck in the mud, and
Nobody
their
wants to
wheel
make a
just keeps
decision.
going and going
Right.
because no one knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a call like that last night. Woman said, you know, I've talked to 4 different attorneys and I'm not sure what to do. And I said, you know what, you just need to pull the trigger. I don't care who you go with, just pull the trigger and do something. Because I always say inaction is action.
Good.
It's someone else making the decision for you.
And
So be in control.
And that can be very dangerous.
It can be very dangerous.
So aside from the power of attorney and HIPAA, are there any other
Well,
documents?
I like my clients, I'd like to give my clients a living will.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest with you, a living will most of the time doesn't have a lot of legal teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Because your power of attorney for healthcare could somewhat override that document.
Okay.
Why I like a living will. So living will, it just, you know, says, hey, if death is imminent,
Mm-hmm.
don't keep me alive, keep me comfortable, keep me free of pain, but don't keep me alive. Let the natural death process take over.
Mm-hmm.
But what if the power of attorney for healthcare wants to override it? They can. How I use it is a lot of my families don't like to talk about this. They don't like to talk about their end of life wishes.
So you pull it.
So if we have a living will, it helps the power of attorney potentially to understand what were mom and dad's wishes, because it's a hard decision to make end of life.
Absolutely.
And if they didn't talk to you about saying this is what I want or this is what I don't want, at least by having this document, they could read it, and then the power of attorney could feel a little better about making that end of life decision. So for me, it's more of a family document than a great legal document, but it's still something I believe I like to give all my clients, with the caveat knowing it doesn't have a lot of legal teeth.
No, we talk to some families sometime, and we'll ask that, do you have healthcare power of attorney? And all they'll talk about is, well, we've got a living will, but that's not enough.
That's
is
not
it?
enough. No, because it's not allowing someone to make a decision for you. It's just for end of life decision, what your wishes are. So it's kind of your voice on paper is what it is.
And that is important, and that is, everybody needs to have that in place. Those are the first 2 things to have in
Absolutely.
place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as we age, you know, we've talked about the statistics here on the show. 1 of every 3 of us are going to end up with some form of dementia
Right.
in our lifetime. Is there an issue with signing new documents? Say the family wants to review documents and find that mom has the beginning signs of dementia.
Right, so it's a slippery slope, right?
Mhm.
But it's a gray area. So we want to make sure that mom has capacity. So again, we want to verify, is there a determination by a psychiatric doctor maybe that she doesn't have capacity?
Mhm.
So again, we want to determine, does she know who she is? Does she know who her family is? Because I have clients who are capable in the morning but have sundowners at night,
Right?
and you can't see them at 4 in the afternoon because it's really bad. But if you see them after breakfast, they remember, they could carry in a conversation. So it really is case dependent.
Very good. Okay.
But just because you have a diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing any of this.
Very good.
So again, this acts sooner rather than later, because we all know something could happen, and instead of just plateauing, you fall down that hill.
Mhm.
And instead of being just mild, now you're moderate or severe, and now the chances of having capacity are slimmer. Okay, so it's real important, especially if you have some sort of diagnosis that may inhibit or prohibit you from down the road making cognitive decisions. Let's get it done sooner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, what if one of the family members in this scenario they've been to talk to some skilled nursing facilities, and they've been told, oh, we're going to have to put mom's assets toward, paying for the nursing home. How does all that work out?
Yeah, I think there's an approach out there with some nursing homes to say you have to spend all your money before you qualify for Medicaid. And if you have the right powers of attorney, so again, those superpowers, the powers of attorney for property are the ones I'm concerned with. There are techniques we can use legally, legitimately, that we can protect their assets, at least half of them. So if mom potentially has $100,000 left, we could potentially protect 50,000 of that and still qualify them for Medicaid and still potentially be at that same nursing home. Again, in my situation, I wish I would have been able to do that with my grandma. Because if we were able to protect some money and she lost her dentures, we would have been able to purchase her dentures. So it's just not to, for beneficiaries. It's also, for dignity for end of life. Doesn't everyone want dignity? And I think we all deserve that. So again, we're following the rules. We're not doing anything that we're not allowed to do, and we'll disclose it.
But just to clarify now, that's not just naturally going to happen. There has to be some action taken.
Correct.
To protect that, right?
Yeah, and usually you have to see an elder law attorney, someone who specializes in this type of area. So again, I hear that a lot where, the nursing home says they'll do a Medicaid application for me. Well, of course they will, but you have to spend all of your money there then, and then they'll do it for you. Well, of course, if you see me or see an elder law attorney, they'll be able to say, okay, well, here's some strategies we could put in place in order to protect your assets. Because if you have a blind or disabled child, an adult disabled child, you could transfer potentially all of your assets to that blind or disabled child and qualify for Medicaid the next month.
To take care of that disabled
Correct.
child for the rest of their life.
Correct.
And that would be all legal.
Correct. Well, I can't give legal advice, so
But,
please don't use this.
Not
as
Okay.
not over the
legal
radio.
advice,
Otherwise,
but
no.
there are strategies out
Yeah.
there if you follow the rules and you protect and do what you're supposed to do, that yes, we do have the ability to protect all the assets at that point. So there are little rules out there that we need to know about.
Okay, can you talk about gifting a little bit?
Yeah, so that's usually how we protect assets if we don't have this disabled child. So a lot of times my clients will come in and say, well, my accountant said it was okay for mom to give $14,000. Well, Medicaid says you're not allowed to gift without incurring a penalty. So you got to remember, the IRS is one branch of the government, Medicaid's another. They don't play nice in the sandbox.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter what the IRS says, because that's only for IRS rules. So yes, you can gift up to $14,000 a year without filing an additional tax return. Medicaid says you can't do it. So there are two different rules because they're two different agencies. Can we gift? Absolutely, if we need to gift to protect assets. But you have to have the right powers of attorney that allow the agent to be able to do this type of planning and understand that there's penalties associated with it. But we know what the penalties are. We know how to explain this to clients to make it, to be able to protect those assets.
And Nancy, as we're talking about this and we're running out of time, I'm just, continue, every time we have you on the show, blown away about everything I do not know, and I'm in the business.
Right.
Okay, and so I would encourage everybody, don't make your own decisions on this. Call Nancie, get some help, get some advice about how to go through this process.
So, to follow up on that, give us our listening audience all of your contact information, please.
Okay, so my address, I'm in Batavia, downtown Batavia. I also have an office in Cary and in Oak Brook, but I do see a lot of my clients in their homes, okay? My phone number is 630-761-3600. Address is getelderlawhelp.com, so feel free to give me a call, email me, whatever it may be. We're more than happy to answer your questions, talk to you on the phone, and decide what the next step should be.
And your website?
Is dorjathlawcenter.com.
And everyone does, it's not the norm that elder law attorneys go out to homes, right? You're a bit of a unusual in that regard, correct?
I think there's not too many that will do that, and I try and limit myself to about an hour away from my home. So, but again, you know, I'm trying to do what's right and what I wish someone would have done for me.
Can you spell out your website real quick?
Sure, it's my last name, so DORJATH Law Center, LAWCENTER.com.
We're out of time, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, I thank you guys.
Thanks, Nancie.